Up next, we have Iowa DOT representatives. We have Samir Nezaric and Ashley Hochberger. Samir is a data analyst at AECOM, and Ashley is the Traffic Management Center and Highway Helper Program Manager at Iowa DOT. They'll be providing an overview of Iowa's DOT practices for managing TMC operator performance. Take it away.
Thank you, Rashad. Next slide, please. So first thing that I want to do is I want to provide everyone with a quick overview of our process. So as you can see by the image in the slide, the process is a constant cycle that is broken down into 3 parts. So we go from our weekly audits to our bi-weekly training and then to the daily performance of the operator. Then the cycle continues. We audit the performance of the operator, we train the staff on the policies and procedures, target areas of improvement, and then the operator takes all that knowledge and applies it to their next incident that they work. So that is a quick overview of the overall process. Next, we will be taking a deeper dive into each part of the cycle. So the first one we'll talk about is the audit process. The audit process begins by taking a sample of incidents to review from each operator. And for us, we've found that our magic number is a random sample of 10 incidents to review from each operator. So with our 14 operators, that gives us a total of 140 incidents that would need to be reviewed weekly. After the random sample has been determined, the next step is to review each incident and conduct the audit. We do this by looking over the incident from start to finish and then checking to see if everything was done in compliance with the policies and procedures. As we review each incident, we note any possible issues or errors that we see, and then we take those errors, classify them by an error type, and then assign them to the operator that committed the error. And after we finish the review process, you can see on the slide there, we finalize them with our QC team. And our QC team just consists of following people: the program manager, project manager, deputy project manager, the trainer, the analyst, and then the specialist. And then in these meetings, we go over each error and decide if the error was indeed done out of compliance, or maybe it wasn't done out of compliance and it was done correctly. So you can think of this part of the process as auditing the audit, just making sure that the audit was done correctly. And then lastly, when the audit is finalized, we will publish the results and share them with all of the operators. So each operator gets to see their own individual errors as well as the results of their coworkers. And we found that by sharing the results with everyone, the operators get to learn from their own mistakes and from the mistakes of others. So that wraps up the audit process. The next part would be the training process. Thank you. So as we go over the audit, we analyze any trends that we might see, and then the trainer will take that valuable information and develop additional training material and lesson plans and that address and correct any of those issues that were found. The trainer will take each shift as a group away from their workstations, and then we'll hold a training session in our conference room. So this way the operators are in like a classroom setting and they're away from any distractions and they can fully focus on the material that's being discussed. In these sessions, the groups will go over the training material. They will work on group exercises together. They will also have the opportunity to ask any questions or raise any concerns that they might have. And then after the training sessions, the operators will be assigned extra material to work on outside of the training session, and they will have individual quizzes on that material that test their knowledge on the material. And I also wanted to point out that sometimes we hold training sessions that are on topics that don't directly tie into the SOPs, but they will help the operator grow overall in their professional careers. So, for example, we've had training sessions on communication, leadership, standardization, on how to ping an IP address and what that means. And we've even had sessions on retirement and 401ks. And then last thing I want to talk about with training, the biggest thing we want to do is highlight that without established training program, the cycle doesn't work. So you need to constantly train for every situation and every possible issue. That way, when they encounter it in real life, they can perform the task and achieve success. So a good rule of thumb to remember is that we always want the first time that an operator encounters something new to be in the training environment, not for it to be in real life. Next slide, please. So as we discussed before, in the performance section of the cycle, this is where the operators will take all that information that they've learned from the audits, from the training, and then apply it to their everyday performance, which in result will result in better performance. So in order to track the performance, you need a way to measure it. And as Les has mentioned, you can do that by doing something called an error rate. So that's what we use to measure our performance. We just take the total number of errors and divide that over the total number of incidents. And then you can apply that metric to the overall TMC, like on this graph here, or down to each shift, or even down to each operator. And the reason that we use that error rate as our metric to measure performance is best explained by this example. So let's say you have two operators and those two operators both made 3 errors for that week. And by just looking at the total number of errors, you would say that, okay, both these operators are performing at the same level. They both made 3 errors. But if you take into consideration their total number of incidents worked, you can get a different story. So now let's say that one of the operators did 10 events and the other one had 100 events. And we would say that the operator that worked less events, we would expect them to have less errors since they had less opportunities to make that error, right? Therefore, if they made the same amount of errors as someone that worked more events, then we could say that that person is underperforming when compared to the operator that worked more events. So with this example, we would see that our error rates, that the operator with the lower amount of events would have an error rate of 30%, while the operator with the higher amount of incidents, same number of errors, would have a lower error rate of 3%. And then we've also found that this metric just helps the operator easily visualize the performance. It gives them a value that they can track over time. So you can see by this chart, this chart is showing the overall TMC error rate since we started this back in October of 2022. As you can see, the total number of errors shown by the bar chart has been going down over time, and then the error rate has also been going down over time, shown by the line chart. And then for us, this just shows us that the performance of the TMC is going in the right direction. We're eliminating errors and reducing the error rate. Next slide, please. So we talked about the audit process, the training process, and then the way we measure performance. Now I just want to talk about some of the lessons that we have learned. The first lesson that we learned was in order to achieve better performance, we would need to achieve consistency across all the shifts. So when we first started this back in 2022, we could see that for the same task, we'd have a different number of ways that people did it. And we all know that that's not going to work. That's not good. So the way we targeted that is by revalidating all the SOPs and vetting the process at the same time. So what this did is it resulted in us rewriting all of our SOPs, including clear step-by-step directions, and then also streamlining any process that could be streamlined. Another lesson that we learned was if we automate a process, any process, if we can automate it, that would reduce the chance for any operator error. So I got a couple examples. First example is instead of having an operator having to refer to an SOP to figure out what the required message would be for, let's say, a pre-planned detour, we imported an uploader into our ATMS that provided ATMS with the correct message to post for each of those signs for that activation of that pre-planned detour. That way, when the operator had to do that in real life, all they had to do was click a button. It populates all their messages for them. They do a quick review and then send it off. And another example is the way we automated our required phone calls. So our idea was to show the operator in real time that their incident required an additional required notification. Because normally they'd either have it memorized over time and know, okay, with this incident, this requires a call to somebody, or they would have to refer to the SOP and then check to see if their incident meets that criteria. So what we did to streamline that is we just implemented logic into our internal dashboard, which the operators use when they work the incidents. And then in the logic, it populates the required phone call to the operator, and it provides them with the reason on why they need to make that phone call. So it's kind of like they know why the reasons that the phone calls being made. They're not just blindly going, right? And the way we did this is by identifying the specific inputs that the operator would make in our dashboard, and then based on those inputs, we can apply logic around that. And that's how we were able to populate those required phone calls. And last thing is our results from doing this was just a dramatic decrease in errors that were related to required phone calls, which in return increased the performance of the TMC. So that wraps up our process and lessons learned here at the Iowa TMC. Thank you all for your time. I'll go ahead and pass it back to Rashad. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. All of those presentations were excellent. Right now, we're gonna open it up to Q&A. If any questions weren't posed during these presentations, some were answered. Hopefully, all of them were answered, I believe. If you have any other questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A pod, and we'll look to get some answers for you. Any questions like any tools or methods that weren't mentioned in any of these, or management's perception? It's not in the Q&A pod, but I think we have a question from Brian. And Brian, is this to anyone in particular, or is it to all the presenters? Okay, to anyone. If anyone would like to answer this question, do you incorporate customer service or stakeholder feedback in TMC performance measurement? I believe Rebecca is typing an answer. Not sure if it's to Brian's question or Johan's question. Johan is a separate question in the Q&A box. Brian, I'm just trying to get yours responded to.
So, Rashad, I'll give my opinion on actually both of those questions. As far as I'll start with the recruiting. I don't know if recruiting is as big of the problem, and MaryAnn, you can jump in if you want, but it's more so the retention. We've been having issues retaining employees. And in fact, that's one of the things that we're trying to work on to prevent them from jumping on to other, I guess, ventures. And we've got a few ideas. I don't know, MaryAnn, I don't know if you want to go into that or not, but staff retention has been one of the biggest issues, because that when you don't retain staff, then you don't develop staff, and then those error rates that we're talking about tend to compound. And before I get to the next one, MaryAnn, if you want to chime in.
Yes. So what we've noticed is that it's not necessarily the recruiting, it's just the everybody coming in. Not everyone fully understands what the TMC is or what they do. So when we get people coming in, they're just thinking like, oh, it's just a general job. And then when they realize everything that they have to do, they're just kind of like, this is not for me or whatever. I'm curious to know if there was ever a plan to do like a national certification for the TMCs. That way, everyone understands, like it's a way to get everybody out there understanding like, oh, okay, this is a national thing. So if you're certified in a TMC, you can go anywhere with it. That would be really great. Preferred educational background. We don't limit it to like degrees or whatever, as long as you have a high school diploma or GED. I had no knowledge in TMC at all when I started. I didn't even know my directions on the interstate. And then I just kind of like, I mean, I've had different jobs throughout my life, but I'm obsessed with TMC stuff now. It's like all I talk about, and I try to recruit people. Um, but it's just basically getting the knowledge out of what your TMC does. And we are working on that with all of our other stakeholders and our DOTD customer service, hopefully to get them to kind of do like a little, uh, media blurb on what the TMC is and what we do and how people can apply and go from there.
So, Rashad, the other question from Brian concerning the incorporating customer service or stakeholder feedback in TMC performance measurement. Uh, I don't know if it's actually directly one of our performance metrics, but I know fairly recently, and again, this goes back to the issue with the turnover issue that we've had recently. Um, I went to what I deemed as our internal customers, our PIO, our maintenance contract, as well as just the districts, et cetera, and really solicited feedback. And from that, try to use in our monthly TMC meetings that we hold. Um, that was the basis for discussion. Say, hey, what are we doing with this? I'm hearing this. I'm hearing that. How can we go forward? What type of training is needed to get better?
Piggyback on what MaryAnn was saying, I was a mechanic before I came into TMC operations. I had no idea what I didn't know who put up the signs. Like I knew nothing about this center. So in our recruiting, we're no longer contracted. We're actually all my operators now state, but when they were contracted, and also on our applications now for state positions, we also don't require anything. Like she said, high school diploma, valid driver's license though, because it is emergency operations, and they need to be able to get to these centers when they're needed. But no prior experience is needed for us as well. Just to piggyback off of that. Thank you, Ryan and MaryAnn. Thank you for Rebecca for responding in the pod as well. We did have a few questions that she has responded to as well. Performance measures used to adjust payout or bonuses was posed by an anonymous attendee. Rebecca then responded for WisDOT, that's completely dependent on AECOM, and MaryAnn responded for Louisiana, that is determined by Serco. They use the performance metrics to determine raises. We have another open question by an anonymous attendee in the Q&A pod. Have the performance efforts resulted in incentivizing operators? Actually, it looks like it got answered. Thank you, Rebecca, for responding as well. Have the performance efforts resulted in incentivizing operators to take on ownership of system performance? In other words, not only do performing actions, but looking at it as managing the system to improve safety and mobility for the public and freight. And Rebecca responded, not yet, as our current focus is on providing quality and current information to the public. Our operators are constantly working with our ATMS provider to ensure quality operations of our ATMS. John has posed several questions in the chat, not the Q&A pod. Did I miss his first one? Well, I see. Have any of the states run into issues with staff having the performance monitoring and reporting with agency staff, or are the practices only applicable to the contractors providing these services? If anyone wants to jump in and handle that one, that'd be great. If not, I can't speak on contractors for Maryland because, again, we're all state now. I don't have a contractor. But as far as performance monitoring, I did create a position that handles that. He's my training and certification manager. I have two operations managers. One oversees the statewide operations center. One oversees all of my TOCs, which are the traffic operations centers that are located in our state police barracks across the state. But all of that is being put on the shoulders of my new training and certification manager. We have one open in the pod. Do any other speakers, states have a thought on the managing the system question? I'm not sure which question that is on the managing the system question. Again, if no one else wants to jump in there, I can speak for Maryland. I, myself, and my new training and certification manager speak directly with, we have a proprietary system. Our ATMS was created and is managed in-house and in conjunction with University of Maryland. Their CAT lab is very helpful with that and developing that. So we have meetings every Tuesday, and if anything's brought to myself or my training and certification manager or any one of my managers, they bring it to me or him, and we speak directly with our systems engineers and the person that handles our ATMS personally. Again, in the chat, please try to keep your questions in the Q&A pod. It is a little bit more helpful to keep track of. We have, which is the preferred educational background? I think we touched on that one. We have, in Florida, we have developed an automated software that tracks events that are assigned to operators and the time frame it takes for the operator to move it along to the next phase in the event recording. The software also reminds the operator that an event is waiting to move along to the next phase when it is lingering. TMC management runs reports daily to review how many events were handled by each operator and how each operator was graded. This software was aimed at grading, but also reminding the operators during the course of an event. Is anyone else using this type of automated software? I'd like for anyone to jump in there. That'd be great. I'm not sure that many states are using very automated software there. I think North Carolina might have touched on some a little bit. In Maryland, I'm trying to get our proprietary system to a more automated system. We have made leaps and bounds in that everything is contained in one unit. I've seen a lot of other TMCs have several sections of their ATMS and they have to work in conjunction. But I have not seen anybody else doing that, like as Florida proposed. Rebecca stated that Wisconsin does not use an automated software that tracks events, which goes along with what my observation has been. I haven't seen a whole lot of other states doing that.
Hey, Rashad, I have a question. I was just curious if any of the other states are using AI in their detection for events. I know that's something we've had companies contact us concerning, but I'm just curious if any of the other states are actually doing it and how they're finding it working.
Great question, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. This is Rebecca from Wisconsin. We're just starting now to look into AI for automatic incident detection. There was a kickoff meeting this past Monday, but unfortunately I had to attend the pre-meeting to this. But I think we are going to be implementing it on, or just for experimental at the time, I think like 20 or 25 different sites. So I can provide some details in the future, but I don't have any information at this time otherwise.
Sure, if you can, definitely get that to MaryAnn or Ty.
Sure, once I know something, or once we kind of have it more deployed and checking in the field, yep, I can provide that information.
Joseph did respond. They're using AID software, automated incident detection software in Florida, and it's being used in several other states. Here in Maryland, we don't have it implemented yet. We are still building it out in some of our ITS devices along a certain section of 695, which encompasses Baltimore, the Baltimore region. There's a section of that, which includes in 2022, there was an incident that was probably almost all the TMSs understand happened with 6 workers in a work zone. But that is our section that includes the new devices that will implement AI and automated incident detection software. They're in that zone. That should be going live next year. We'll see if that happens because the time frame keeps getting pushed back. But yeah, we are planning on that. An anonymous attendee, is there any career path for operators for those who may want to stay? I can speak on that. At Maryland, we have 7 different levels. So our operators are called highway operations technicians by title. You start off as a hot 1, and after a certain amount of time, you can then test up to highway operator 2. We also have highway operations technician 3, which is a team leader. Then the 4th level is a supervisor. And like I said, I as a contractor, I started in 2014 as a highway operations technician 1. I have moved up to supervisor by 2018, manager by 2020, and division chief by 2022. So in Maryland, there's tons of mobility here.
In Wisconsin, we have been, since I've been here, we have been trying to provide different opportunities for our control room operators to promote. I'm going to call it like the lowest levels is going to be the control room operator. Then we've got a lead operator that is also a trainer. Then above the trainer is going to be a QA QC specialist and or a flex lane specialist. And then on top of that, you've got the ship supervisor. And then we just created a new position for assistant manager, which one of the ship supervisors took. So now we've got a ship supervisor position open. So we are trying to make sure that our control room operators have the opportunity to advance when we do have openings.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Any other questions want to be posed in the Q&A pod? Take a couple more minutes for that. Otherwise, there are various places that you can reach out to people. I believe any of these presenters, along with myself, you have our email addresses and you can reach out if you have any questions that follow up once we conclude this session. It's looking like we might be all questioned out. If there are no more questions, I believe we can move on. Thank you very much. Here we have our completed work products from the pool fund study. Things such as managing TMS assets, assessing and reporting on TMS capabilities and performance, predictive analytics. These are all recently completed projects that you can find on the Pool Fund Study website. That address is found below. Thank you, Kyla, for putting that in the chat. All of those reports will be on the completed projects page, as she just put it in the chat there. And it is at the bottom of your screen as well. Our upcoming webinars in this series, again, be on the lookout for these announcements at the NOCO on the NOCO website, and for our upcoming NOCO webinars. If you are interested in being a speaker or moderator or host in an upcoming webinar, please contact John Obenberger. Again, he is our liaison at FHWA for the Pool Fund Study. These are upcoming topics, again, that we'll be touching on moving forward. You can reach out to John Obenberger or Kathy Thompson. They've both been very beneficial in handling these. We can move forward, please. Again, that is the NOCO website. You can find ideas, you can submit ideas, research topics, our TMS portal, as well as plenty of other information that you'll find on the NOCO website under that page. And Kayla, I think we can go to the closing poll.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Rashad. I'm gonna put a poll question in here, just asking for any thoughts on future webinars. Okay, share this one. Okay. So just if there's any information, resources, or research conducted that you'd like to see that are not currently available in that TMS portal, you can share some information there. And then if there's any additional TMS emerging topics that you would like to see, just always great to get information collected from everyone who attends these webinars. So we'll just leave that open for a minute or so, and then we'll just wrap up. But I do want to say, thanks so much to Rashad for moderating, and for our panelists, Les Jacobson, Samir Nezervik, Ryan Reviere, MaryAnn Nickles, Rebecca Klein, and Scott Nauman. Those were really informative presentations, so just really appreciate everyone's attendance and participation today. And then, as I mentioned in the beginning, a recorded version of the webinar will be available on the NOCO website probably in the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, just thanks so much for participating today, and stay tuned for future webinars. So I'll leave this poll open. I think we're wrapping up here. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. All the presentations were great. Plenty of questions.
Great. So looks like we still have some answers trickling in here, so I'll just leave it up. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for panelists. Thanks for attending.